Hurricane Ian hit my hometown of Cape Coral on Wednesday, September 28th, as a strong Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane with wind speeds of 155 miles per hour. Many of us residents were expecting and preparing for a Category 3, possibly low-end Category 4 hurricane with possible storm surge of up to 8 feet, but woke up on the morning of Wednesday, September 28th, with the shocking news that we were going to be directly hit by Hurricane Ian in a few hours with a strong Category 4 or 5 and with expected storm surge of up to 18 feet. In this video, I will show you the time-lapse progression of Hurricane Ian as I experienced it, as well as the devastating aftermath to the city of Cape Coral. My house has hurricane-proof windows and was built with reinforced structure beams. The house sits at an elevation of 12 feet from sea level. At this point, the wind has started to pick up, and the water in the canal has started to rise and is already above the normal high tide level. The increasing winds has snapped my banana tree in half. You can see some palm fronds have fallen, and the water is starting to pool in the front yard. You can see how the electric power lines are being shaken in the wind. The wind is getting stronger, and you can see some lightning. The sound of the wind has become louder with intense whistling and howling. Whitecaps can be seen in what is usually a calm water canal. The wind gusts were becoming severe, and the combination of rain and salt water being blown sideways was greatly reducing visibility. The wind has picked up such a strong intensity that many of the trees are being blown severely sideways and look like they're going to snap and be blown away. While hunkering down inside the house, we could hear loud banging noises on top of the roof. Here you can see pieces of my roof scattered about. The hurricane was relentless. The severely strong winds and the intensely loud howling and whistling just kept going on and on. My sanctuary van was holding up pretty well. My neighbor's roof, however, was not doing well and had sustained some damage. My roof had some damage occurring on the left side of the house. My neighbor's boat canopy had become loose. Wind was blowing underneath it, causing the whole structure to shake aggressively. At this point, the water level has risen to the top of the seawall. In time, the winds had been so strong that there's roof damage to my neighbor's house directly across the street, as well as to the one on the left. The utility pole outside the front of my house has snapped and fallen, and the transformer is hanging by the electrical wires. My neighbor's boat canopy has been ripped to shreds, and my screen door has been ripped off and blown into the pool. The water level has now breached the seawall and is rising into people's backyards. The damage to my roof has now become more severe. Water is now starting to flood the street. At this point in time, the water has now risen about 8 feet. Docks have become completely submerged in the water. The utility pole is now surrounded by water, and the street is completely flooded. The water has risen about 10 feet and is becoming dangerously close to flooding our houses. That boat on the left belongs to a neighbor about a quarter mile down the street from me and had become loose and was blown all the way down the canal. We saw many things floating by our house. These kayaks also belonged to neighbors far down the street and were blown anchor and all the way down to our house. The water has now risen about 11 feet, and the house is dangerously close to becoming flooded. At this point, we had elevated many important items to keep what we could dry. Driveways are now becoming flooded. It seemed like the hurricane was never going to end. It just kept going on and on. The canal looked like an ocean with all those big waves. The water level continued to rise. Mailboxes were now almost completely submerged in the water. Eventually, the winds finally started to slowly die down as darkness approached. This is the day after the hurricane. There's debris everywhere, in my yard, my neighborhood, and throughout the streets of Cape Coral. There's no electricity and no water throughout the city. Here is a look at some of the aftermath of Hurricane Ian in Cape Coral. This large carport completely collapsed, crushing the many cars underneath it. There are power lines down throughout the city. All the way down this block, not only were the power lines knocked down, but some of the poles themselves are now completely missing as they were washed away by the floods. This is Cape Harbor. Here you can see many boats have been damaged. The flood waters rose so high that some of these large boats ended up on the walkway. Some boats can be found in a median, in the middle of a road. Someone's rooftop has blown off and landed in the road. The flooding has caused the car on the right to float into the street. This car has also floated into the street. There are utility poles that are leaning, threatening to fall at any moment. There are many large trees that have fallen into the opposite lane, preventing anyone from driving on that side of the road. Fallen electrical wires are strewn across roads. All the street lights throughout the city were not working. This is Tarpon Point Marina. The damage here is severe. Hurricane Ian was the worst hurricane this area has ever seen. Many lives have been lost. Many people have lost their homes and possessions. Many people have experienced a trauma they will never forget. My heart goes out to all those people that have been impacted by Hurricane Ian.